Hi guys, sorry I haven't recorded a video in a while. Life and basically my obligations have been kicking my butt and I've been super busy, coupled with the fact that I'm not going to say I was depressed because I haven't been clinically diagnosed with depression, but I've been feeling really down for the past year. So mostly to do with my career. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing in my life. My mom died 3 years ago. I'm still not used to that. And I don't know, like I was just feeling down. But anyway, for this video, I'm just basically showing you guys what I do to get the process started on, basically how I sculpt my dolls. So as you can see from the very beginning, I chose my measuring spoon. So basically, if you don't use measuring spoons to make your spheres, what you would do for that particular part is think about your doll's joints. What size joints do you want? I already have in mind the size of doll that I'm going for. So the very first thing I do before I even start sketching, excuse me, my doll is I pick the sphere sizes I want to use for each joint. Secondly, I sculpt the doll, but I don't sculpt both sides. Like for instance, I sculpt one arm set and one leg set and I use that one sketch because I don't know about you, but when I sketch, my drawings are never the same size on each side, so I don't want to mess up and end up sculpting joints that don't match. End up sculpting parts that don't match. I don't want to have one arm bigger than the other, and so on and so forth. So working on the sketch, I try not to spend what I'm trying to say is working on the sketch. I try not to spend too much time sketching out an actual character. Rather, I spend time sculpting the structure. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with sketching out the character for the doll, but for me personally, I find that is a lot easier for me to stay on task and focus when I only sketch out the structure. So I'm in the sketch, I'm writing out the types of measuring spoons that I'm going to be using. I've pulled out my clay. For this particular doll, I'm going to use Premier clay because I've kind of gone back to using air dry clays. For a while, I was working with like super sculpey strictly, but now I've rediscovered air dry clays, so I'm trying out Premier for this doll and also another doll that I'm working on. So after sketching out my basic after sketching out the basic sculpt, I basically count out all the spheres that I need, and for the next steps I'm actually going to take the time out to make the spheres for each and every single joint part. This is just the first pass, so this is just the preliminary. Sorry if the camera is shaky. My stand really sucks and I was using my cell phone, but anyway, this is just the preliminary sketch. This is just the preliminary sphere joints. After these are cured, I'm going to go back in again and refine them with the measuring spoons. I used aluminum foil as a core for the big parts, for the bigger joints, because I don't want to end up using too much clay because I'm using air dry clay. Although I put it in my toaster oven, it takes forever to cure, and yeah, so I use aluminum foil to shape that. I basically put the clay on the aluminum foil, and then I wet the measuring spoon to help the clay move smoothly, and then I just kind of gently run it in there to just shape the clay a little bit. If you're using air dry clay, make sure you knead your clay properly, because if you don't, when it cures and when you're carving and you're sanding, if you take a piece off, it's going to come out in chunks, and we don't want that to happen. So I don't really have that issue with either La Doll clay or Premier clay. I think they're both by Patico, because they're very smooth, and it's very, I don't know if they grind it, but it's very finely ground. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but it's very smooth clay, so I don't usually have that issue when I knead it a little bit. So anyway, I run the clay in my measuring spoon. I try not to put too much pressure on it, and as I'm going, is kind of cutting the excess off as I'm going. So that's that. Um, then for the smaller spheres, I basically just use a hunk of clay. I knead it properly, then I basically just run it through in there. Um, I'm not sure if that makes any sense. I'll try to upload a slower version, a not sped up version of me making the spheres, just to try and give you guys a good view of what's going on in the video. I say a lot. Sorry about that. Um, anyway, so to recap, basically, when I think of a doll, I think of the size, I keep the size in mind, and when I'm doing my preliminary sketches, I choose all the balls that the ball sizes I'm going to use for the doll, and then I go ahead and I sketch out the doll. I only sketch out one arm and one leg because I want to use the same reference for both parts. Of course, when I sculpt the opposite, like I sculpt the right arm and then I kind of flip it to sculpt the left arm, if that makes any sense. So I do this because, like I said, I cannot draw things the same size every time without a light table. So I would rather just work off one arm set. Then I go ahead and make the balls and I wait for them to cure, and then I use the balls to basically help me go ahead and sculpt my doll. If you're starting with sculpting, the best advice I can give you is don't spend too much time sculpting out the characters, because if you're learning how to sculpt, your sculpt is not going to look like the drawing anyway. I mean, I've been sculpting for a while now. I've been doing this since like 2006, and I just recently learned. It just recently clicked for me, but I've been doing this for a while. And one thing I've learned about myself is my sculpts never look like my sketches. So I just feel like, for me personally, this is not the end all be all, but for me personally, I feel like spending time working on the actual structure in the beginning phases as opposed to building the character helps me focus, and it's very helpful in terms of like just basically like narrowing things down and you know, getting the structure and the jointing and the mechanics done. Also, another tip I have is don't fall in love with your sketches too quickly, because chances are you'll probably have to change something. If you're just starting, the learning curve is really huge, so there will always be changes. So if you fall in love with something, it's a bit disheartening when you have to like scrap everything and start over. But if you're really like not that invested, it's not, I mean, be invested in your work, but if you're not too attached, it won't hurt you as bad when you, bless you, if you're not too attached, it won't hurt you as bad when you have to scrap everything and start over again. Yeah, so for the very first stages, do not spend more than an hour sketching, because it's not going to look like the sketch anyway. Try to plan out the structure and the joints as opposed to building a character. If you're a bit stuck and don't know where to start, this is actually a great place to start, like planning out the base sculpt for your doll, not the character, but the base doll. Like, what's the articulation going to be like? 1 point of articulation or 2 points of articulation, you know? So just sculpt, I keep saying sculpt, just sketch a blank doll, no character, no facial features, nothing, just a blank doll with all the points of articulation that you want to have planned out, all your sphere sizes planned out, all that planned out, the basic silhouette of the doll, not necessarily anything distinguishing like the curves or whatever, just the basic silhouette. We don't start, well, I personally don't start pulling out things like curves and a pooch, under pooch, whatever. I don't start doing all of that until when I get to the carving and sanding phase. But in the beginning phases, I'm just working on the basic structure, the basic joints, the basic silhouette of the doll. So when you first start, if you don't know where to start, and you don't know what to do, just try to revert back to thinking about all the basics and all the things that you want your doll to do. In terms of the sketching, I recommend not spending more than an hour sketching, because let me tell you, I started sculpting in 2006, but from 2006 to 2007 I didn't really like jump in there, and I spent so much time just drawing and saying, yes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. Then by the time I finished drawing, I didn't really have the motivation to sculpt anything. I would spend so much time drawing, and it was such a waste of time in the end, because when I first started, my drawings didn't look anything like my. But yeah, concentrating on the base as opposed to the character is a good way to start. Then once once you've gotten a lot of practice, and you know you're more secure in your work, then you can design dolls based off of characters. But for that very first doll, I recommend designing the doll based on the structure and, you know, points of articulation and things like that. But yeah, those are pretty much the tips I have for, you know, that's pretty much what I do when I sculpt my dolls. So after this, the next phase would be actually fleshing out the doll and like just adding on, you know, pieces of clay to build the doll, and then I move on from there. I'm planning to record this as another from start to finish series. I'm a bit low on clay right now, so I don't know when part 2 of this video will be posted. Again, I apologize, it's been almost a year since I posted a video. I've been very busy over here, like life happened, and yeah. But anyway, if this is something that you like, I'm always active on Instagram, so if you want to see exactly what I'm working on right now, follow me on Instagram. I'll include my links down below. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching my video, and have a good one, y'all. Oh, I will try to not wait for another year before I post another video. Thanks for watching.